Derek Kidner, who is a scholar and who writes about Ecclesiastes, says, what spoils the pleasures of life for us is our hunger to get out of them more than they can deliver. Getting eternal and ultimate meaning out of temporal and temporary pursuits is destined to fail. Whether it's pleasures or whether it's successes and accomplishments. We are a culture, if you let me just read it the way I wrote it, we are a culture drowning in entertainment. We go from one event, one show, one athletic competition to the next to keep us occupied. But all it does is serve as an anesthetic to the hurt and the pain and the emptiness that we feel. It occupies our minds so that we don't have to deal with or search for the real answers to life's deeper questions. Some of us are keeping our kids so busy, they never have time to even think about the greater matters of life, the real meaning of life. And that's true for us as adults as well. That's true for the way we're living as well. But entertainment, Solomon says, can't satisfy me. Staying busy, all of my successes and all of my achievements. Can you imagine what all went into taking care of what Solomon was doing? I mean, there are building projects everywhere. I don't have time to take you to 2 Chronicles chapter 8, where he talks about the cities that he's building beyond Jerusalem. Places that are outposts where he's putting up and saving all of these things that he's collecting. He has one city that's some 300 miles away. It's on a trade route. It's a matter of a place. You got to pass that way in order to get to Jerusalem. He's got all these places, the palace. It took him 13 years to build his own house. It only took him 7 years to build the temple. It took him 13 years to build the king's palace. He's got all of these accomplishments. And then think about taking care of it all. In 1 Kings chapter 4, you just listen to it, verse 22. Now Solomon's provision for one day was 30 cors of fine flour, 60 cors of meal. A cor can be between 6 and 10 bushels. So take the lower number or the higher number and multiply it. He goes on, 10 fatted oxen every day, 20 oxen from the pastures, and 100 sheep besides deer, gazelles, roebucks, and fatted fowl. For he had dominion over all the region on this side of the river, from Tipsha even to Gaza, namely over all the kings on the side of the river, and he had peace on every side all around him. In other words, unlike his daddy, he wasn't involved in wars. He wasn't battling the enemy as his father had done. He had peace, and he's spending every ounce of his money looking for meaning from life and looking for purpose. And he looks in the intellect, and he looks in the education, and he looks in reason, and he looks in experience, and he looks in philosophy, and it says it's empty, it's grasping for the wind. He looks in pleasure and entertainment, and he says it never satisfies me. And he looks in his accomplishments. By the way, more than 40 times in chapter 2, verses 1 to 11. More than 40 times he uses the word I, my, or myself. Everything is being done for me. Look back at it again, verse 4. I made my works great. I built myself houses and planted myself vineyards. Verse 5, I made myself gardens and orchards. Verse 6, I made myself water pools. You get down to verse 8, I also gathered for myself silver and gold. I mean, he's doing it all for himself. I've got to find meaning. I've got to find purpose. I've got to get busier and busier. I've got to build more and more. There's got to be more accomplishments. There's got to be more entertainment. There's got to be more pleasure. And stop and think about the 700 wives and 300 concubines. Solomon might have put Hugh Hefner to shame. Yet he can't find the answer. Verse 11 of chapter 2, then I looked at all the works that my hands had done, and on the labor in which I had toiled, and indeed all was vanity and grasping for the wind. There was no profit. You remember we looked at that word in the last message? That's the net gain. When you've taken everything that you've earned and paid everything out, that's what the net gain, and it comes out to zero. There is no profit under the sun. I tried to find the handle on the smoke. I tried to get that air, a fist of air in my hand. I tried to hold on to that vapor. I tried to get that bubble to rest on my hand and not burst. But every time it broke. And it left me just as empty as when I started. Just as empty. When you begin in verse 12 of chapter 2, he does an analysis. He goes from his research to his analysis. And he's going to tell you something that's really important. I'm going to talk about it quickly. Verse 13, he says, then I saw that wisdom excels folly, as light excels darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. Yet I myself perceive that the same event happens to them all. That's death. Whether you're wise or you're a fool, you're all going to die. But he says, here's my analysis. It is better to be wise, to have intellect, to have reason, to have philosophy, to have education. It is better to have that than it is to be a fool. I mean, when it comes to getting a job, it's a whole lot better to be a college graduate than a kindergarten dropout. Are you with me? I mean, it's a lot better to be a college graduate than a kindergarten dropout. I mean, that's the reality of life. That, you analyze these things and you realize, it is better to have intellect and to have education and to have understanding. That is better than being a fool. Verse 15, he says, so I said in my heart, as it happened to the fool, it happened to me. And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart, this also is vanity. Now he's starting to think in his analysis. He's starting to think, you know what? Yeah, having intellect and understanding and experience and knowledge and, having philosophy and having, all these things is important. It's like walking in the light compared to walking in the darkness. The reality is, the wise and the fool both alike die. There's no gain in it. There's no ultimate meaning in it. There's no ultimate purpose for your life. There's nothing beyond this life. It's just here for a little while and then it's gone and then it's gone. He'll go on with that kind of thinking here in just a few minutes, but it's amazing. He continues in verse 17, and he tells you from his analysis. Now, listen carefully to the depth of the words that he uses. Therefore, after my study was completed and the analysis was done, therefore, I hated life. Because the work that was done under the sun was, listen to the word, distressing to me. For all is vanity and grasping for the wind. Verse 18, then I hated all my labor. You mean all those buildings you built? The palace that you built? You mean the wall around Jerusalem that you built? You mean all of those outlying places that you built? You mean all of those animals that you amassed? All the chariots and all the horses and the ships? Wow. He says, I hated, verse 18, all my labor in which I had toiled under the sun, because I must leave it to the man who will come after me. I can't control it. I can't take it with me. And when I'm gone, somebody else will have it. Verse 19, and who knows whether he will be wise or a fool? Yet he will rule over all my labor in which I toiled and in which I have shown myself wise under the sun. This also is vanity. Did you know that research shows that if you amass wealth, that usually by the third generation the wealth is gone? You know, you're handing it down. Usually by the third generation, the wealth is gone. You understand, all of you business owners, all of you people that have a vision of something you want to accomplish in life, you understand that's your vision, and it often can't be passed along. Sometimes it is, but it often can't be passed along to the next generation. They'll have a different desire and a different vision of what they want to accomplish, and they'll take what you've worked so hard for and they'll squander it sometimes. Right? It happens. Verse 20, therefore I turned my heart and despaired. Hear the word? Of all the labor in which I had toiled under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, yet he must leave his heritage to a man who has not labored for it. This also is vanity. Listen to his words, a great evil. For what has man for all his labor and for the striving of his heart with which he has toiled under the sun? For all his days are sorrowful and his work burdensome. Even in the night his heart takes no rest. This also is vanity. I mean, such strong words. I hated life. I was distressed. I was in despair. That means I'd lost all hope. I can't sleep at night. And all I do, you workaholics know exactly what I'm talking about. All I do is work every single day, all day long. Hey, and technology has made our houses an extension of our offices. Vacations are now an extension of our offices. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And Solomon says, I got it all. I have everything. And it means nothing. I got to leave it behind to somebody else, maybe my son-in-law, and he'll squander it all. Not my son-in-law. I didn't say that. I don't have anything to leave my son-in-law except the bills. It'll all be gone. It'll be done. Every day I get up and I go through the same routine. I work hard every day. I work by the sweat of my brow. I go through the same routine over and over. And when I go to bed at night, I can't sleep thinking about it. It's always on my mind. It's always spinning on my mind. I was astounded to read the latest statistics we had from 2019, not 2020. They're not completed yet, but 2019, the latest statistics were that more than 47,000 people committed suicide. But here's the astounding figure. Almost 1.2 million Americans tried to commit suicide. That's from the Census Bureau. A little more than 47,000 actually succeeded, but almost 1.2, just short of 1.2 million tried to commit suicide. We live in America. We live in the greatest country on the earth. We have more opportunity than any other country has. We have more wealth than any other country. We have the blessings all around us. But people know, they know that you can't find meaning and purpose in pleasure, in successes, in all of your work. You can't find it in education or your intellect or your ability to reason or your education or your ability to make good judgments. And we're miserable. Some of you haven't smiled since you walked in the building. You hadn't smiled. You're just thinking, I'll smile when you're finished. That's when I'll smile. That's when I'm going to smile. That's where we live. Ernest Hemingway Ernest Hemingway, the famous author, Pulitzer Prize winner. He chose the words, "The sun always rises," as the title of his best-selling novel. And in it conveys the despair that characterized much of his life and writings. Years later, shortly before he committed suicide by taking a shotgun and killing himself, the well-known writer confessed, listen, "I live in a vacuum that is as lonely as a radio tube when the batteries are dead and there is no current to plug it into." And for those young people who don't know what a radio tube is, ask your grandparents. It was also Ernest Hemingway who said, "Life is a dirty trick, a short journey from nothingness to nothingness." Wow. You say, "Preacher, surely you're not going to leave us there." No, I'm not going to leave you there. You'll come back to chapter 2. He makes the first positive statement. He says, "Nothing is better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that his soul should enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw was from the hand of God." You know what he says? If you're looking for meaning and ultimate purpose in the things that are around you, in things that are temporal, you will never find it. It'll always be like chasing the wind, trying to get a fistful of air. It'll always be that way. It'll always be that way. But you know what? Those temporal things, if you learn to appreciate them and be thankful for them and notice the good things that are around you, that's a gift from God to you. That's a gift from God to you. You know, we're so busy, we don't have time to notice the beauty of the skies above us, the beauty of the moon at night, the beauty of the fall leaves that are blowing across the yard, the beauty of the flowers that are blooming in spring, the beauty of the colors in the fall as the trees are changing colors. We don't have time to enjoy the beauty of the things that are around us. We don't have time to appreciate the people that we stand next to at the plant or that we work with. We don't have time to enjoy. We don't take the time to enjoy those things and say to God, "Thank you. I realize that I can't find ultimate meaning and ultimate purpose from this, but I want to thank you for it because in it you are providing for my family and in it there is joy." You know, we don't have to have a game controller and something bouncing across the screen to be able to find joy. You can go out and just watch the squirrels fighting for that bird feeder that's hanging over there, trying to slide down that little narrow strip of wire that you've got hanging there, just trying to get down to that bird feeder to get, and just watch them. Or just watch the beauty of the hummingbirds as they flutter right there to put their beak inside the feeder and get that sugar water. And be amazed at the creation of God. We're too busy. Yeah, I'll be in the office in just a few minutes. Yeah, I know it's after hours, but I'll be there anyway. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, just text me. If I'm not there, in plenty of time, just text me. I'll be there as quick as I can. Okay. Solomon comes and he says, "Look, here's my analysis. You're never going to find joy in these things. You're never going to find the lasting joy, the eternal joy in these things. You're never going to find the ultimate purpose, the ultimate meaning of life and what's temporal. You can't find it in the temporal life." But he said, if you'll stop and you'll evaluate, you will discover that there's a whole lot of good things that are all around you, and you should learn to enjoy them. Now I want to finish by taking you to a case study. You say, "Okay, Pastor, I understand. I get what you're telling me. We're listening to a man who's been there and done that and has the T-shirt And he's trying to teach the generation coming behind him, don't make the same mistakes. Don't look in the same ways. Don't go about it the same way. There's another approach. You've got to go a different approach. You're going to end up on the same dead-end street that I've been on. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you want ultimate meaning, that ultimate meaning comes from God himself. I want you to turn to John chapter 4, and I'll finish. John chapter 4. Jesus was making a journey, and he went through the city of Samaria. Jews often didn't go through Samaria because there was animosity between the Samaritans and the Jews. They usually went around Samaria. Even though it was a longer journey, they went around Samaria. But Jesus said, on this particular day, I have to go through Samaria. And the reason was because there was a woman there, and he was going to change her life. And he was going to change the lives of a whole bunch of other people that lived in the city of Samaria because of the testimony of that woman. Jesus and the disciples get there to the well. They go on into the city. The disciples go on into the city to get food. Jesus sits down out here at the well. And while Jesus is sitting at the well, a woman comes out. And she starts talking to Jesus. Jesus starts talking to her first. Then she starts talking to Jesus. And they enter into a conversation, something normally that wouldn't have happened because of Jew and Samaritan and because of male-female. Wouldn't normally have happened, but here Jesus engages this woman in a conversation, and Jesus tells her where the ultimate meaning and fulfillment and purpose of life is found. And he uses the well itself. Notice what he says, verse 10. Jesus answered and said to her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is who says to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. The woman said to him, sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as well as his sons and his livestock? Jesus answered and said to her, whoever drinks of this water will thirst again. Think Solomon. Amen. Intellect, education, reason, judgment, experience. You can go after it with all of your heart, and it'll be a well you have to come back to again and again and again, because it can never satisfy or give meaning, full meaning to life. You can go after pleasure, and it'll be a well where you have to go back to every day. You have to go back to that well. You have to go back to that well. You have to go back to that well. More pleasure, more pleasure. By the way, you know, it's like alcohol and a lot of other things. You get a little bit of pleasure that you sort of seems to satisfy, but then it doesn't become enough. So you got to expand the amount of pleasure, and then you got to expand the amount of pleasure, and you got to expand. You want more and more and more. And you can go back to that well over and over. And Solomon says you can't find the meaning or the purpose of life in that well. Or you can look at your accomplishments and the degrees on your wall and all the things that people say about you, your profits, your possessions, your popularity. And you can go back to that well over and over and over again. And listen, that well one day will run dry. That well will one day run dry, but that well can never satisfy. It can never give meaning and real purpose to life. This woman came to this well every single day of her life. And when Jesus says, I'd like to give you some living water where you don't have to come back to the well, what do you think she said? What do you think she said? Man, I want that water. What kind of water are you talking about? You don't even have a bucket to draw with. Are you greater, verse 12, than our father Jacob? Verse 13, Jesus answered and said to her, whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst, but the water that I shall give him will become in him, not in the well, will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. You understand that life is not a treasure hunt focused on pleasure and work and wealth. Life is supposed to be a God hunt. We're seeking the Lord while he may be found. That's Isaiah 55 or Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. He is a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. You know where the fulfillment comes from? You know where the meaning comes from? It comes from a relationship with God through the Lord Jesus Christ. I've been saying this for almost 40 years here. Why do we come to church? Why do we have life groups? Why do we read the Bible? Why do we study the Bible? Why do we have all of these things about knowing God and worshiping God and loving God and seeking God? Because I know that outside those doors, they'll tell you that what they're offering you will satisfy you, but it's only temporary. It's a well you have to go back to every single day, and ultimately it'll run dry. But that relationship with God never gets old, and it never runs out. It's a spring. It's a spring. It just keeps on providing the freshness and the meaning and the purpose of life. You say, David, if you could go back and play professional golf, would you do it? There isn't any way I'd do it. Because I have found the real purpose and the real meaning of life. And that doesn't mean that God calls everybody to be a preacher. But I have found the real meaning and the real purpose of life isn't at the end of a long stick with a little ball on a tee. The real purpose of life is in pursuing God with all my being. Amen. That's where the meaning of life is found.